Hey, Tyler.
Hey, Piet.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Score podcast. My name is Pat. This is my co-host TYG, Tyler Pratt. Tyler Pratt, how we be doing?
Oh, we be doing. I got
We be
a
doing.
special treat for everybody today. This is free advertising, by the way. Make sure you guys go cop yourself a little bottle of brown water, and yeah, so that's what we're swigging on tonight, boys. Drink of the night.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Well, this is episode 7, Tyler. We got our Week 9 NFL recap. By the way, if you're on YouTube right now, do us a favor and click like and subscribe. If you're on Spotify, if you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a follow on that. Follow our Facebook page, New Score Podcast. And most importantly, follow us on IG, new_score_podcast. We're looking to do a lot more fan interaction now going forward. And we're going to be putting out some stuff on that IG page to engage with our fans a little bit more, Tyler. So let's get on that. We're going to introduce a new segment, just a Q&A segment. And that's why we want your support to get your insight, get some questions from you, get more involved with you. So tonight we got a Q&A segment, got a few questions rounded up. And this episode is going to be just talking football, talking Week 9 NFL. We will have another segment, another episode at the end of the week where we'll get into some more segments. But today it's just strictly ball, baby.
Let's go.
So
Let's go.
let's dive into this Q&A. First question is from my old boy from TC3, my third baseman for life, Marcus Chestnut. He wants to know, who is the scariest team in the NFL right now? Scariest team in the NFL right now, I'm thinking this team at their best against that team at their best. And right now, the team that is the scariest to me is got to be the Baltimore Ravens. They look tough right now. They have a whole new aspect to their offense. It's not just 2-3 tight ends on the field, power run game, throw the ball to Mark Andrews. Lamar has developed in a way where he's spreading the ball around the field, getting the ball downfield vertically, using these receivers. Zay Flowers was a great pick for them this year. They're really showing him off. I mean, Dobbs goes down again. It doesn't even matter. They got 3 running backs. They had 300 yards rushing this past week. And then we talk about them now adding that aspect of that passing game, that vertical passing game. And if you don't think that Lamar Jackson has developed into an elite passer in the NFL, then that says more about you than it does about Lamar Jackson, to be honest. The way he looks this year, I think he looks better right now than he did his MVP year, and that's just because the MVP year it was a lot of that run game, a lot of that RPO. They did hit shots downfield like Hollywood Brown, but it just felt like it was because he was wide open. There wasn't any him just like dicing up defenses. You didn't see it like you do now, and they still have that power run game if they need it. The reason why the Ravens are so scary to me is because I feel like they can beat you no matter how the game goes. If you want to get muddy, you want to get in the mud, in the muck, play power football. You want to play hard nosed football with the Ravens. I don't think you want to do that with that defense and the way they're looking right now. Kyle Van Noy, who they signed off the street, is balling right now. It's like that guy. He's 32 now, but he's out there. Just nobody signed the guy, and he just shows up and he's dominating and winning games for the Ravens. You're helping him. team just looks so good every phase of the game right now. Um, Tyler, who's your scariest team?
I'd have to agree with you. It's the Ravens for sure, for me at least. But I guess for the sake of the segment, if I had to pick another team other than the Ravens, um, at like you said, at their best, it'd have to be the 49ers. I know that Brock Purdy had a couple weeks where he struggled a little bit, but when they're fully healthy and they're at their best, there's just no better roster in the NFL. And Brock Purdy showed that he can play. Yeah, he had a few bad weeks in a row, but he can play. The Niners are going to be fine too, but I agree with you though. The Ravens, and then aside from them, if I had to pick, Niners.
Yeah, and another question I got is from another one of my TC3 boys, Vic Jacobson. And he wanted to know, why is Lamar so good against the NFC? Lamar is now 18-1 in his career against the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's because there's so much in defense that goes with scheming and being familiar with opposing offenses. And by only playing NFC teams, only playing Lamar every 4 years, you don't get that. You don't get familiar with him. I feel like the worst that we see Lamar, the worst version of him, is against that AFC North, where those teams know him so well. And it's all like we see what the Broncos did to Mahomes both times he played him this year, and it's just like some of those matchups where you're playing a teams a lot, and they get used to guys you're not allowed to do that in the NFC. You're only playing the dude every 4 years, and then possibly in the Super Bowl. So it's like if the Ravens get to the Super Bowl, whew, they
Yeah.
just continue to rout NFC teams. Um, but I do want to say, if I had to have a second, it would be a team that's in their division, and that's the Bengals. With the way the Bengals look right now, how healthy Joe B looks, Joe Seisty, he's he looked phenomenal on Sunday night. Mixon looks good. Mixon looks better this year than he has he did last year. And like T Higgins, the emergence of him on Sunday night, to see that from T Higgins, it's like if they could get him and Chase both going in the same game, and now you finally get the ball to your tight ends. Like Irv Smith could be a weapon for them too. Tyler Boyd still got it, and on top of everything, it's like they don't have to score a ton of points because they have a really good defense, and that pass rush can get at you. So to me, it's between those two teams, Ravens, Bengals. But I'd have to say the Ravens are the scariest team in the league right now. Next question is from our boy Todd Albrecht.
Todd.
Todd, how you doing? Todd.
Dot, dot, dot.
Todd wants to know, who is the team that won't be close to the playoffs, but will ruin or have the potential to ruin um, teams in the hunt, like ruin their
Hmm.
season.
Good question.
Um, it is a good question. Right now, we're going into week 10, so it's tough. It's tough for me to be like, okay, this team's going to be out of it, so they're going to play the role of a spoiler, because there's still time for teams to make a run now. Um, but thinking about it off the top of my head, I would have to say the Tennessee Titans, who now are 3-5, and they're just sitting at the bottom, lonely at the bottom of the AFC South. I would have to
Yeah.
say the Titans, because now you got Mike Vrabel, who there's not many teams that go against the Titans and have a coaching advantage against the Titans, because that's how good of a coach Mike Vrabel is. He's always going to have that defense playing. If they can get Derrick Henry going with Spears, I feel like they need to use Spears more. But on top of all that, like, Ryan Tannehill's gone. We're not we're not thinking about the Titans with, all right, well, we have to handicap this team because of their quarterback. I
Yeah.
feel like Will Levis has shown so much these last 2 weeks that you just don't see from rookie quarterbacks, especially rookie quarterbacks that are going into like their first start in the middle of the season. Like, he's just thrown into the fire in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
And I know they lost to Pittsburgh on Thursday night, but I just feel like when you watch him and you see the throws that he makes and you see that live arm, and on top of that, like you see the competitiveness in him, that's something you don't get with Tannehill. And I feel like the Titans, he's going to have his growing pains because he's a rookie quarterback and their O line stinks.
Yeah.
Um, so he's gonna have his growing pains for sure. But even if the Titans don't get into the playoffs, I could see them being a handful for teams. And not to mention, they've only played one division game so far. So I'm sitting here saying they might be a spoiler, but realistically, they could be on top of that division, in 8 weeks. Could be. They still have two games against the Jags. They still have two games against Houston, and they still have one game against Indy. Now, I'm not saying they're going to. The Jags are clearly the favorite in that division, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it's all in front of them for that team. Tyler, who's that team for you?
God, that's such a it's such a good question. A question from Todd. And I pulled up the standings again just to get my facts straight. But there's in the AFC alone, there's 3, 6, 11, 14 teams. Right? Am I doing my math right? Out of the 16, there's or maybe it's 13. 13 teams out of the 16 that have at least 4 wins on the year. So 13 out of the 16 teams,
Even the Raiders,
even
who
the
just
Raiders,
fired their coach.
they're 4-5. That AFC North is crazy right now. The Bengals, Browns, Steelers are all 5-3, and then the Ravens are at the top 7-2. So it's like it could be any one of those AFC North teams. They're all good. It could be the Steelers, Browns, or Bengals. One of the I do think the Bengals are going to get in though. I think it's going to be them and the Ravens out of that division. And then you look at, I think the one that kind of, if I had to pick one, I think it would be the Chargers. I think the Chargers can be that team that can play spoiler just because of their
I
offense.
don't think that's fair though, because they're
But
calling them a spoiler is just means they're not reaching their expectations once again.
yeah, but yeah, that's
You
a
know what I
fair
mean?
point. Yeah,
Like I feel like that's not a season that they're going to be happy with. Probably gets Brandon Staley fired.
yeah,
But that's a point. The point you make with the AFC, it's like we're thinking about that. In my head, it's Tennessee's only got 3 wins, and I just
mm,
talked about them and their capability or potential.
yeah,
And then Denver, who I feel like will get better with Sean Payton. Whether I don't know, who knows with Denver, honestly. And then who's the other team? Oh, New England.
yep,
And New England is, I mean, the Patriots are the worst team in the AFC.
yeah.
Isn't that crazy to like think about in a sentence?
It it is, it is, and so Todd's question was a team that's nowhere near the in the picture, right? It was like not in the picture whatsoever.
Right, just team you didn't expect.
Yeah, yeah. So in the AFC, you only have your choice of three because everybody else is in the race. so,
Yeah,
but
it's tough. It's
yeah,
AFC's tough. NFC.
I feel like
I mean,
the
it's so
NFC.
inconsistent.
Yeah, I'm looking at the teams of who could play spoiler to me. Um, Probably the Rams. And if Stafford is healthy and he's playing, I feel like the Rams can be that spoiler team because on any given week, Stafford comes in with a healthy cup, Puka. They got the run game going. Like I probably have to go with the Rams on that one.
Did you see who we signed today?
No. What?
Sorry, we signed Carson Wentz today.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
No, they didn't.
they did. I'm convinced McVay just loves, now that we're not going to go to the playoffs. He just loves like these projects, like Baker Mayfield last year. Hey, let me see what I can do with this guy, and he's thinking that with Wentz now. Maybe it gets Wentz another job next year, starting gig like he did for Baker.
That's funny. Good for Sean McVay though.
It is funny. All right, third and final question, Tyler. It's from your cousin
No.
Matthew Mattis, Bills fanatic.
Baby cuz?
He wants to know. He wants to know, was that a intentional grounding in that Bills Bengals game Sunday night? And that's when Josh Allen got called for grounding. They got pretty pissed about it, obviously.
Hmm.
They ended up losing field goal because of that. They lost
Yeah.
3 points on that drive. To me, by the letter of the law, it's grounding, but the refs in the NFL and professional sports, period, just need to have like common sense.
Hmm.
It's clearly an option route.
Yeah.
Like how often is he gonna? It's not like he was trying to like escape a sack. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like trying to get rid of the ball pass. It was clearly an option route where he could set his feet and he just throws it 20 yards over the guy's head. And yes, by letter of the law, officials, great job. You made the right call. But it's
Hmm.
like, is that really what we're doing? Like, is that really what we're doing, NFL?
No,
We're
I
just gonna like not have any common sense.
right. So I agree completely with you. I said the same thing when I was watching the game with him. I don't agree that that should have been grounding. I mean, I don't even know if he got hit on the play. I'm pretty sure they blitzed. The
No, I don't
Bengals
think he did.
blitzed,
He
but
was, and that,
obviously Allen saw
yeah.
it and thought that his receiver was going to run down the field, so he threw it downfield. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't, yeah, I just don't think that it was grounding. I disagree with the call, but like you said, by the letter of the law, like, yeah, technically it's grounding, but the refs need to just come, like, that's why you come together, right? You throw the flag, you come together, you huddle up, you talk it over, everybody gives their quick opinion. I feel like someone should have been like, yeah, I really don't think that he was trying to throw that ball away. I think he thought his receiver was running deep, kind of seemed like an option route, but they clearly did not do that.
Yeah, it's like that's why you come together and you huddle, right?
Hmm.
I mean, is to try and talk it over, things like that. But it's shit's wild to me. On top of that, there were two calls. I got my notes over here. We're about to get through these games, but there were two calls this past weekend that were just Commanders got called for roughing the passer on a sack in that Commanders Patriots game where I don't remember who it was. It's my bad. But he's just running up behind Mac Jones and he's just literally textbook. You've seen this sack like a million times in football. He's just running up behind him, wraps him up, falls on him, just like that. Like you see that all the time in football. There was nothing. He wasn't like holding his weight down on him or
Hmm.
anything. It wasn't hitting the in the neck or the head. It was like a textbook sack, and they called roughing the passer for that. So that was one call I noted. I was just like, "What the fuck, dude? What is going on?" And then the second one of the day was in that Colts Panthers game where Panthers D back hit Michael Pittman on a route across the field. It was a beautiful football play from a defensive back breaking up a pass. I think it was a third down too, third and long. Just made a great play on the ball, lowered his shoulder and hit him in the target zone, or what you think is the target zone in football, right? Like
Hmm.
this is what they're saying. This is what they're preaching. This is where you can hit these guys. Okay, well, call it like that. Stop making these guys have to hit dudes in the knee and end their seasons.
Right.
Like let these guys play football out there. And it's like that goes from a punt to that team gaining 15 yards and getting an automatic first down.
Hmm.
That's so ridiculous. That changes so many games. Like putting that kind of control in officials' hands. That's why gamblers get so pissed off because it's like obviously that's a clean football play and now that team's getting 15 yards and a first down and they get to continue their drive. And how many times do we see it where there's a call like that and that team goes down the field and scores?
Yeah,
Shit's
and
old to me.
yeah, and my thing with it too is like on that play because I remember I got hype on the hit. I love seeing those hits because we don't get them very often anymore. So I get pretty hype when I see them, and I was pretty excited about it. Saw the call, and in my opinion, it's like, okay, what's the alternative for the defender, right? He's in the right spot to make the play, but he clearly just didn't get there soon enough to make a play on the ball. So if the defender cannot make a play on the ball, is he supposed to just let the receiver run right into him and now he takes the blunt of the hit? Or is he supposed to wait until they catch it, take 2 steps, and then try to wrap him up? And from there, you could miss the tackle, and now he runs 60 yards for a touchdown. So they're putting these D backs and sometimes linebackers, just defensive players in general, they're making it so hard for them to make a play on the ball, or rather the receiver. It just it's unfortunate, and I hope that they continue to work on that because obviously they have these conversations every off season. So I'm hoping that they talk that over again this off season, be a little more lenient, just like you said, let these boys play some football.
For real. Speaking of football, let's get into this week 9 slate. How about it?
Oh my
Start off
God.
with our game in Germany. Kansas City Chiefs, Miami Dolphins. Chiefs win 21-14 over there. Takeaways from this game. Chiefs defense, explanation points. They hold Tua to 192 yards passing. That McDuffie play stripping Tyreek, and then Mike Edwards picking it up and pitching it for a touchdown right before half to make it 21 zip at half. That's the play of the game in my eyes. That's the difference in the game. Score ends up 21-14.
Mm-hmm.
Play like that was huge for them. They held Miami to 117 yards rushing as a team, which yeah, it sounds good, but for Miami, like that's
Below average.
they've been killing teams on the ground, killing teams on the ground. Hold them to 117, hold Tua to 192. And the biggest thing I put down is you didn't see those explosive plays.
Yeah.
Those explosive plays that the Dolphins are constantly getting against defenses to win games. The Chiefs were putting them in check. Um, so credit to that defense. To go over the game a little bit more, Cedric Wilson touchdown made it 21-7. Then there was a 3rd and 20 sack fumble where the Dolphins got it in Kansas City territory. On 3rd and long, they got a personal foul call from Chris Jones. They got him a first down. And then the next play, Mostert scores a touchdown, make it 21-14. And then going down to the wire, I thought both defenses stepped up. I thought Miami's defense really stepped up. That's a team we've been talking about where you see those pieces on defense. We just want to see them come together as a unit and get used to that Vic Fangio system. And I think that they are improving.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're only going to get better. We know what their offense is. We know what their offense is capable of. I'm not by any means like sleeping on the Dolphins. They're a missed throwaway late in that game on that last drive. Cedric Wilson, he had him for a touchdown. Over what was there was some miscommunication, I believe. It had to be.
It,
I don't think he misses the throw that bad without miscommunication, but who knows? I mean, other than that, just to continue talking about the Dolphins a little bit, it's like we see this image that the media is portraying of Miami, and then the narrative now is Miami can't beat any good teams, Miami's frauds, da 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 da. I just think that's complete bullshit because I give you that argument in some cases where you can tell like a team is just barely getting by and you just don't really see it and you look at their schedule and it's like, well, they haven't beaten any good teams. There's just really nothing to them. Yeah, I agree. We do see that. But we also see what this Miami Dolphins offense is capable of. And I'm sorry, the amount of speed on that field. And by the way, Achan isn't even back. Like they're still gonna have Achan back for a playoff push. Like y'all are sleeping on the Dolphins right now because I see that. I see with my own two eyes when I watch that team. I see what they can do to a defense. There's nobody like them when it comes to that. So don't tell me that they haven't beaten any good teams. It's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And I don't take anything from that. I thought they played the Chiefs really good in this game. Like I said, that one play, that fumble before half, that was the play of the game. To go to the Chiefs' point, that defense, I keep talking about that defense, how I think that they're a better team than they were last year when they won a Super Bowl because that defense is looks like a top 5 defense right now. And like that's the truth. And they don't even have their leader Nick Bolton in there right now. And they held Miami's offense in check without him. So you get that kind of production from your defense. And then you're telling me you have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey and Pacheco with Andy Reid calling the plays for that offense. That offense who doesn't have to score 40 points to beat you anymore because they have that defense. The Chiefs, I talked about scary teams, and yeah, I talked about the Ravens and I talked about the Bengals, but that's just all based off potential. And when it comes to the Chiefs, we know that they're capable of doing it. We know they're capable of going on that playoff run. We know Mahomes. I mean, it's nice to imagine Lamar playing like that, late in the postseason. Who knows? Maybe he does. I hope he does. But we know Patrick Mahomes can. So I don't. I'm not slandering the Miami Dolphins for losing to that Chiefs team. What are your thoughts on this game?
Same thoughts that you have. Um, the Chiefs are one of the best in the league. That defense is carrying them while the offense still tries to figure it out. I thought that the Dolphins defense in the second half finally kind of impressed us for maybe the first time this year as a unit. Did they hold the Chiefs to 0 in the second half, or there was it 3? I can't remember, but either way, they
Yeah,
played
0.
they played great in the second half. Where for
They
those,
held the
go ahead,
yeah.
go ahead.
They held that Chiefs offense 14 points because you had the defensive touchdown.
Yeah. So for those of us who took the Dolphins at +2, um, where that play that Pat talked about at the end of the first half, where we're that one play away from the Dolphins possibly even winning the game. They were going to go. They were cruising down the field. They were getting what they wanted for pretty much the first time that game on that drive, and they were starting to get some chunk plays. And then Trent McDuffie just made a great play and stripped it right out. And then that's just a crazy play. You don't see that shit very often. So I mean, that was cool to watch. But yeah, and then on that final drive, I think the consensus on that throw to Cedric Wilson from Tua was that the ball slipped out of his hand. I think that's
Mm.
what the consensus is because there's no other than that, right? It has to be miscommunication. There's no way that Tua throws the ball that poorly, and he was open. He was wide open. And then on that final play, when you watch it, they bring that all out blitz, and Tua takes his eye off the snap. I mean, it was a very catchable snap. It wasn't the center's fault. That was just on Tua. And then he had Waddle. I'm pretty sure it was Waddle going across the middle of the field with a one-on-one, and he was very open as well. So that could have been a huge play if Tua just catches the snap and sees that. But shoulda, coulda, woulda. Congrats to the Chiefs. But I did like what I saw from the Dolphins defense for the first time, so that was encouraging.
Yeah, Spags sent the absolute house at Tua on that play. I mean, it was like Tua was probably like just like a deer in headlights before that snap came, and his eyes were definitely not on that ball when it was getting snapped to him. But moving on, let's get to the Houston Texans defeating the Tampa Bay Bucks 39-37. What an absolute pleasure it was to watch this football game. CJ Stroud from the Ohio State University absolutely set the world on fire Sunday. Winds up with 470 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks, NFL rookie record. Unbelievable. By the way, I do want to give a shout out right quick. Houston Texans 4-4 right now, playing exciting football. The only Houston Texans fan that I ever met in my life was my boy Danzel Atkins from the Army. and he recently passed away. So rest in peace, brother. I know you're looking down
R.I.P.
and you appreciate that play. You appreciate those boys, the way they're looking. And CJ Stroud right now is scary. D'Amico Ryans has got those boys flying around on defense. Baker Mayfield lit them up, I tell you that. But they're playing with some fire.
Mm-hmm.
That team is just so inspired right now. And it's thanks to Stroud and D'Amico Ryans. Um, Going through this game a little bit more, I thought the Bucks offense looked really sharp. Team that we were shitting on last week for how their offenses looked. White got a couple touchdowns in this game. How about your boy Noah Brown?
Yeah.
No, former Cowboy,
Yeah.
former Buckeye, absolutely lit it up for the Texans. Got a 75-yard tutty in there. This game just was so crazy. Texans kicker Fairbairn gets hurt, so they have to put in their backup running back, Agumbalale,
Mm-hmm.
and he's out there kicking 30-yard field goals to take the lead late in the game, and he nails it. This game was just absolutely absurd. Baker threw a great ball late in that game to Mike Evans. I thought it was awesome to see that play from Baker Mayfield, and it felt like an old school, like not even old, but Big 12 shootout. Like that's what it felt like on Sunday watching these two teams. It felt like Baker was back at Oklahoma and they were playing Ohio State and CJ Stroud, and these teams were just going back and forth, back and forth. I thought it was really exciting football. What are you taking away from this one?
The takeaway I had from this game is that it was an awful week of betting for me. I could not have had more bad beats this week, fellas. I mean, it was just tough watching every game coming down on the wire, and there's a few games that made me sick. This was one of them. I took the Texans at -2.5, and of course they win by two. So on that final, um, the final drive that they scored the touchdown, I'm like, okay, they got to go for two here, obviously. And you know what's so funny? Before I get into that, my Matt Mattis, my cousin, baby cuz Matt Matty, he asked me out of nowhere earlier in the day, hey, if you were up by 2 points with X amount of time, he always throws out these crazy scenarios. He's like, if you were the team that just scored, would you go for two? Would you kick the extra point or would you knee it? And I was like, I guess for the sake of argument, I would go for two and just tell the running back to cover up. I'm not going to throw it, just either QB sneak it or go for two. I mean, at that point, you're risking you're taking the risk that there could be a mishandled snap or an exchange, and the defense could theoretically pick it up and run 100 yards to get 2 points and tie the game up. I was like, the odds are so crazy. I was like, but I probably wouldn't take the knee. So what does the Houston Texans do on that final 2 point conversion? They take a fucking knee on the 2 point conversion. And Matt was like, see, see, I told you I'd take the knee. I'm like, and I'm already pissed. I'm like, Matt, shut the fuck up, dude. Shut the fuck up. So it's just crazy. And then
Worst timing.
right, and then leading up to that, it was crazy that the Bucks even scored because Baker had that great throw, and then I forget who was running, but they fumbled the ball, and the Texans literally had it in their hand, and then Mike Evans hits the guy, and then it falls out of his hands, and then Mike Evans picks it up, and I'm like, I can't catch a break. I can't catch a break. It is just like the whole thing. And then obviously they scored. Then the Texans went down, scored, and needed on the 2 point conversion. So I missed that by a point. Of course, if the Texans have a kicker, we probably win the bet for all of us who took them at -2.5. We probably win that bet. But other than that, I think fucking aside from my shitty luck, we have to be excited for the Texans' future for once, right? With CJ Stroud. I've never been high on Ohio State quarterbacks. I've made that clear. But when I watch CJ Stroud, he just looks good. He looks the part. He looks like a number 2 overall pick. Everything they have going on. Shout out to my boy Nico Collins. I like a lot of what they're doing, even missing Damian
Tank Dell,
Tank Dell. Yeah, Tank Dell. What college is he from?
that's
Do
a
we
good
know?
question. I know he did. He's from Florida. I know that.
Somewhere in Florida. Yeah, I'd like to look that up, but he's been great, even with some injuries that he had earlier in the year. He's been great for them. Um, excuse me. So
Dalton Schultz.
my boy, uh, which it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that with Dalton Schultz because he is on that 1 year deal. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. They should resign him, but we'll
Have
see.
to.
Yeah, we'll see what they do. But yeah, even without Damian Pierce, they didn't have much of a running game, obviously. And I know,
Oh, nothing.
yeah, I had to. That's why I had to make that trade in fantasy. I was like, I'm not starting Devin Singletary. I just can't. But either way, um, that was a great game. And for all of you who had some unfortunate luck this week with your bets, just remember we all hop right back on the train. We have a down week, we get right the fuck back up, and we keep betting. You keep betting. You take the
Got to.
percentages and you keep betting. Go Cowboys.
All right. Moving on to what had to be the second. I mean, that game and this game were everything. That 1 o'clock slate, and it's that Minnesota Vikings Atlanta Falcons game, 31-28. This game ruined my parlay.
It ruined my
I know
day.
Tyler lost too. We each had Atlanta in this one. How can you predict Josh Dobbs going into that game? If we know Josh Dobbs is playing, we likely don't make that bet. But it is what it is. That's the beauty of it, as they say. Talking about this game, Jaron Hall, who started for Minnesota, I thought he looked comfortable in there. It was 3-3 early in the game, but pretty early in the game, he's out of the game. And here comes Josh Dobbs. Right away, takes a safety, and it's 5-3. And you might be thinking, like, this guy has no chance out there. Like, he just signed with this team a couple days ago, doesn't know anybody, doesn't know the offense, nothing. And, like, how is this dude? And we kept talking about how good that Atlanta defense has been playing. But boy, did it get out of hand for that Atlanta defense because Josh Dobbs started to unleash. And something needs to be said about Josh Dobbs. This is the third time in the last 2 years that he's done this where he's signed with a team and he's just thrown into the fire. Like, all right, dude, you're the starting quarterback. Go get him. And this is the third time. He did it with Tennessee last year, and he had to play that big Thursday night game in Jacksonville that essentially decided the division. He's starting that game for the Titans out of nowhere after not knowing anything. And I thought he looked pretty decent in that. He beat the Cowboys last year with Tennessee?
That's a good question. That's a good.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. Pretty sure he did.
I'll look it up.
But moving on, this year, signs with Arizona right before the season starts when Kyler Murray's hurt. And it's a team that you think's tanking. And right away you see that offense was competing week in, week out. And I thought Dobbs, given the circumstances on that team, really showed something. And that's why Minnesota, when Cousins goes down last week's like, yeah, we'll take that guy for, I think it was a 5th-round pick. And immediately he's thrown into the fire. First Sunday with the team. And he ends up like, there's like a street baller aspect to Josh Dobbs where there's guys that you could just kind of throw out there into the fire and they're going to find ways to beat you. They're going to find ways using his legs, doing what he has to do. And it's like some of these quarterbacks in the league need like everything perfect to be around them. And it's like they need to have a clean pocket. They need to have this. They need to have good protection. Da, 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 da. If something breaks down, they're fucked. Josh Dobbs, I feel like, thrives in chaos. That's when he's at his
Mhm.
best. is when things are just thrown at him out of control. Like the dude's an astronaut. So it's like this shit's just getting, and he's processing it all, and he's like everything's on the fly, and he's doing what he has to do, and ultimately he breaks our hearts in the end.
Yeah.
Scores a touchdown, beat Atlanta. By the way, N'Keal Harry is on the Minnesota Vikings. Did not know that, but I saw that and I had to write it down. Heineke, who we've been praising, did throw a bad pick late in that game. Then he led them down the field to take the lead 28-24. And ultimately, Josh Dobbs gets a fourth and long scramble to put them inside the 20, throws a game winning touchdown to Brandon Powell. And you and I are just shook. Parlay's dead. Big Juicy Bet was dead. I know we were hurting after this one.
I was absolutely sick. I was fucking sick with that going on, and then the Texans game going on all at the same time, dude. I was, I needed a bucket, dude. I was about to throw up. It was just so crazy. They had him. They had him. Fourth down. Play to end the game. Fucking it might have been Bud Dupree. Had him in reach. Missed the sack. Josh Dobbs runs 20, 30 yards for a first down, and then the rest is history. So that was just crazy. Just crazy. It was a game that, once again, was just unpredictable. Absolutely unpredictable. No ways. Even if you told me Josh Dobbs was starting that game, I'm still taking the Falcons and I'm still betting big on them. I'm thinking to myself, how could someone possibly learn the playbook that quick and go against a good defense with limited reps with the first team offense and keep a game to 3 points? Like, you could have told, like I said, you could have told me just Dobbs was starting. I still would have bet Atlanta. Um, so it's just crazy. One of the things I took away, though, from Atlanta, I don't know what the kind of ideology is behind rushes for Bijan, but I really would like to see them get him more involved in the run game. I get that they like Algier, and I think he's good too, but like, I want to see Bijan get more involved. And that fumble he had, though, was like the real turning point, because I think Atlanta was already up 7 or more at that point. They're driving down the field. Bijan fumbles that with the chance to get more, and then Minnesota turns that right into points. So that was the momentum shift that they needed, and they got. The other thing is that Taylor Heineke, um, I kept putting my head in my hands because some of the throws he was making, I was just like, bro, reel it in. He just was gunning it 15 yards over these guys'
Gunslinger.
heads. He's a gunslinger. I still take him over Desmond Ritter. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah,
Um,
we're not going back from that.
yeah, we're not going back to that. No. So I liked what I saw from the most part from Heineke. Obviously, he made a few mistakes. He's kind of prone to making a few mistakes throughout the game. It's just for him, it's about limiting those. And I thought he did okay, but just a crazy, unpredictable game that I would still take the Falcons in that one 10 out of 10. But we caught a bad beat in that one, boys. So we'll eat that. We'll take that on the chin and move on.
Yeah, especially if you knew that like Dobbs doesn't know any of the plays. Kevin O'Connell has to tell him in his helmet before every play, hey, this is what this guy's doing. That's what that guy's doing. This is what the plan is. This is what your keys are on this play. And then him to process that while the play clock's going
Unbelievable, dude.
and then take the snap and still be that effective. And like, yeah, a lot of it was with his legs, but it's just him making shit happen. After that Bijan fumble, he had that 23-yard touchdown run, and then he had an unreal throw on that 2-point conversion
Yeah.
that put it at 21-21. Great throw. It's like you see this shit. Like if you're one of those teams who's like you're one of those mid teams and you're like, our quarterback, I don't know if he's really the guy. We've seen ups, we've seen downs. You see Josh Dobbs, who's been thrown away by the league by multiple teams, go into that situation and pull that off, just make things happen.
Hmm.
Like make it happen.
Yeah.
You see that from Josh Dobbs, and you're like, holy shit, they're paying like he's getting paid that, and I'm paying this guy this much money who can't win me football games unless everything's perfect around him.
Hmm.
Like that's something to note. And I'll throw CJ Stroud in that same category because he got thrown onto a bad team this year as a rookie, the team with the second overall pick, and see what he's doing. So
Yeah.
it's something to think about. But moving on to a game I don't want to talk too much about, Rams Packers 23 Green Bay. And there's no need to really talk. It was like the whole game, it was Brett Rippon, who doesn't deserve to take a snap in an NFL game, just shitting the bed for the Rams, not giving them any hope on offense. Defense was doing the best they could. They were holding on for as long as they could, given the circumstances, because Rippon was bad. I wrote down at one point, I feel like I'm watching Jeff Fisher's Rams again because it felt like that when I was on the couch watching that game, that I was thrown back into like 2012 where our offenses were just pathetic. And obviously it's before the days of McVay, so I've been spoiled over the last few years. But it's like even McVay couldn't save Brett Rippon out there with things that he was doing. He ends up just botching a snap late in the game that killed them. We missed a field goal. I don't. It, Aaron Donald looked good, so that was a
Yeah.
plus.
He did.
Um, I don't think Jordan Love did anything spectacular to win that game. It was all the Packers defense just stopping a horrible offense. There's really nothing more to take away from that. I'm not overreacting. I'm not like pumping up the Packers at all. I did think they did a good job of finally getting Aaron Jones involved.
Hmm.
This was his best game, I think, since the first game of the season for them. So that was good to see from them. But other than that, this game was just a rough watch. And hopefully Stafford is going to play coming off the bye because I can't watch Brett Rippon, and I really do not want to watch Carson Wentz out there for my Rams. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that Carson Wentz would just at least provide a little bit more hope than Brett Rippon at this point, and that's the whole reason why they signed him. They clearly
yep.
do not want Rippon to take another snap. So insert Carson Wentz if Stafford can't get healthy enough through the bye week. But I did actually want to say I did look that game up. Dobbs did not beat the Cowboys last year, but they did make it close. It was 17-13 late in the third quarter. So or actually after the third quarter. So entering the fourth, it was 17-13. So he didn't make it close, but he beat the Cowboys this year. So fuck him. Um, yeah, that game, I took the Rams at plus 3.5. I was betting on McVay. I was betting on McVay that he could come up with a scheme to keep it close. But like you said, there's only so much McVay could do. Rippon was just bad, and the Packers didn't do anything crazy. They just had to take advantage of one of the 20 opportunities they got on the offensive side of the ball. Uh, and I'm glad they got Aaron Jones more involved because that's what that offense needs. But Jordan Love still didn't look good to me. And that's something that, maybe growing pains for Green Bay. But yeah, great time for the Rams to have a bye week, get Stafford healthy, and then we can get back on betting on the Rams.
Yeah, play that spoiler.
Hmm.
I don't see McVay tanking. So
No,
best case scenario, we play that spoiler.
exactly. Oh, wait.
Moving on to
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry. I just wanted to say, uh, to your point about tanking, big shout out to Minnesota for making that trade for Dobbs because they could have easily mailed in the season once Kirk Cousins went down because Jefferson was already hurt. So they could have easily decided to mail it in, but instead they trade for Dobbs because they know that he's got a little dog in him. So shout out to them.
yeah, great point. Chicago Bears, New Orleans Saints. Saints pull it off 24-17. I don't have too much on this game other than Score got to be 14-7 Bears. Cole Kmet had just scored his second touchdown of the game. And I wrote down, Tyler, I think I'm starting to fall for Tyson Badgett. Bagent.
I think you
I'm
are.
starting to fall for him.
I think you are.
I really am. I texted Todd, our Bears guy, about it, and I was like, man, there's something about this kid. I really like it. I just think he's fearless out there. He feels like he belongs out there. Um, he responded, yeah, he's got that moxie, and that's the perfect term for it. He's out there. He's got that moxie. He may not be able to make every throw on the field that he thinks he can make, but I like that. I like that confidence out of a young quarterback. I'd rather have that than coaches have to baby these guys out there and be like, all right, if your first read's not there, here's your second read, or here's your check down, or all right, we're gonna set you up, in these short dump offs. Here's your screens. We're gonna, limit to you like 15 passes a game. I hate that for young quarterbacks because you're not developing them. And it's like quarterbacks are so good now coming out of high school with these camps and then going into college. We see all these great college quarterbacks. Like if your guy's not doing it in the NFL, would just let him go. Let
Mm-hmm.
him go and let him be himself. And if he's not that guy, he's not that guy. Move on to the next one. Like it's that. Like we don't have to pay these guys who are just mediocre because there's guys out there. There's going to continue to be guys that go in. Um, but the downfall of Tyson Bagent, I'm just going to say it both ways every time. Downfall of that is those turnovers. And that's a little bit of like that false confidence where he thinks he can make every play on the field. Ended up having 4 turnovers on the game. But it felt like every single time that he was turning it over, the Saints offense just wasn't doing anything with it. So credit to the Bears defense for holding strong. I felt like all game long in the red zone because that game could have gotten really ugly with the amount of turnovers. And it's like every turnover, the Saints are set up and they weren't doing anything with it.
Yep.
So, I mean, outside of like some Taysom Hill plays down there in the red zone, there wasn't much. They had a touchdown to Olave early. Bailey Group misses another field goal for them, but then he nailed a 55-yarder that made it 17-14. Thought it was a big kick for him. I didn't think he was going to make that, to be honest. I thought Deontay Foreman ran pretty well for the Bears. That was good to see from him. I know they're getting Herbert back, and I don't know if it's this week. I don't know if it's going to be this week because it is a short week. They're playing Thursday. But I thought Foreman looked pretty good. Like I said, that Bears defense held their own, stopping them in the red zone. And ultimately, Groupie misses a field goal at the end to ice it after he made that 55-yarder, giving the Bears hope. But then Bears get strip sacked, 4th turnover of the game, ended the game.
And there was another bad beat for your boy, right? We take the Saints -8.5. They have all those turnovers, and they do nothing with them. They had a 4th and inches or 4th and 1. Could have kicked the field goal. It would have been a chip shot, like a 30-yarder. They went for it. I don't blame them for going for it, but they just didn't get it, right? Okay, so that was a fail. They get another turnover, and they, I believe, had to settle for a field goal. And they get another turnover. And of course, this one's late in the game. Now we just need a field goal to cover. And they get the first down on it was a 3rd and whatever. If they didn't get it, they probably would have kicked the field goal. They got it. Need the ball to end the game at like the 10-yard line. We lose another one. So that was another bit of a bad beat. But it was encouraging for Agent Bajent, though. I thought that he did look really good in that first half. The second half, a lot of those picks that he threw, though, I don't necessarily think they were bad throws. They were kind of one-on-one, hoping your receiver makes the play, and they just didn't. The Saints defense is tough, though. They're a top 10 defense, so it was encouraging. other than obviously the turnovers. If you look at it and you're like, okay, yeah, Bajan had 5 turnovers, you think he had a terrible game, but if you actually watch the game, it wasn't really the case. Obviously, he has to clean that up. That they have no shot of winning games, even if he turns the ball over. It's tough for the Bears to win if he doesn't turn the ball over once, let alone 5 times, and they still were within one possession. So, uh, yeah, I guess that's encouraging for them. But to your point about the quarterbacks and kind of letting them play, and if the guy's not the guy, you show me the one segment where Dan Orlovsky was on a podcast and he was talking about all the quarterbacks in the league, and if you're not in that top 12, maybe top 15, the rest of the quarterbacks in the league, maybe not the third stringers, but we're talking the rest of the number one quarterbacks and then majority of the second string quarterbacks typically have about that same potential. And it just comes down to who can limit turnovers and stay more consistent. And those are the guys who typically get the starting job. So, to Pat's point, if the guy that you go with is not the guy, then you're not really losing much going to your second string. So, I don't think it's a huge risk in some of these teams' cases, but either way, bad beat on that game as well. On to the next one.
Yeah, there's so many intangibles that go into playing quarterback. There's so much more to it. Some guys have it. Some guys have that it factor, that that ability to command a locker room, command other men, and inspire them and lead them and make all of them better. Some guys have that, and some guys don't.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said in a previous episode, when I ranted, those are things that don't get measured at the combine. Those are things that don't get measured at the pro day. So that's why we continue to see, so many busts and then so many guys in the late rounds, because it's not all about those things.
Yeah.
But getting on, Seattle Seahawks, Baltimore Ravens. Ravens win 37-3.
Whew.
I already talked about the Ravens, how I think they're the scariest team in the NFL right now. So I don't want to blow their horn too much more. But yeah, I mean, 300 yards rushing. Lamar now 18-1 versus the NFC. Here's a stat for you. The score is 14-0. Gus Edwards just scored his second touchdown of the game. The Ravens have 16 first downs. Seattle has 2. So that just tells you everything you need to know about how the beginning of that game went. It's 14-0. And then they get a big chunk play to DK Metcalf for 50 yards. And I'm like, finally something. And then they have to settle for a field goal. So it's 14-3. And then right after that, this is the difference in the game to me. Odell Beckham fumbles, sets Seattle up to potentially score and make it 14-10, sets them up, and Seattle's sacked twice. It brings them back, and they end up not getting anything out of it. So it's like your defense makes a play for you to get you right back into that game, and you can't do anything with it. And it's like it's time for Seattle to remember who Geno Smith is. Like it was cute, like that Geno Smith the last year, like that run that you made and everything, and how he was looking, like that was nice. But let's not forget who Geno Smith is. You need to establish that run game and get Geno in play action, because you got Kenneth Walker, man.
Mm-hmm.
He's really fucking good, and you can't pass block. You
Charbonnet.
can't do it. We see it week in and week out. You guys can't pass block. So stop putting the guy in shotgun every single play and dropping him back, and expecting something good to happen, because your pass pro is trash. You need to establish that run game and remember who you are as a football team. Remember who your quarterback is. Run that ball to set up the pass game. Don't go out there just try to and wing it around the field, throwing the ball deep every play. You know what I mean? Or because he doesn't even have the time right now.
Mm-hmm.
He really doesn't. Kenneth Walker had 6 carries for 17 yards in the first half. It's like, I get it. You're down 14-0, and then you're down 14-3. there's still time left in the game. Like you could still run the ball. This doesn't have to be like a desperation comeback from you. Like the game's not out of reach, but they failed to establish it, and it just got kept getting worse and worse for them. That Baltimore Ravens defense was eaten. Um, Keaton Mitchell, rookie back for them, came out of nowhere. Just another running back plug in for them. Broke a touchdown run. He had a great day. Edwards had a great day. Justice Hill continues to look good. That touchdown run made it 30-3, and I wrote down Jamal Adams looks washed. Like I'm seeing more of like Jamal Adams puffing his chest out every time I see the Seattle Seahawks play and talking shit. I'm not seeing like where's Blitz Boy been?
Yeah.
Like the investment they made in that guy, and I feel like he's first of all he's always hurt, and now when he's on the field, I'm not seeing that impact player. Last night, I'm seeing Derwin James all over the field making big plays for the Chargers. I'm not seeing that from Jamal Adams anymore. So that's another thing to think about. But essentially, yeah, I think the Ravens are the scariest team in football right now.
Yeah, the biggest, or I should say, the only time I heard Jamal Adams' name this year, once he started playing because he was hurt to start the year, was a ball that was thrown off his helmet that the defense ended up intercepting. So, I mean, like that's the play that is the most memorable for you this season is a ball that the quarterback threw off your helmet. Step it up, brother. Uh, Other than that, I really expected this game to be a lot closer than it was. I thought this was going to be one of the better games of the week to kind of group in with like the Eagles Cowboys game, Bills Bengals game, and there was a handful of really good games this weekend. I thought that was going to be one of them, and it wasn't. The Seahawks came out, they flopped. It happens, especially against a team as good as the Ravens, who are as hot as the Ravens. Um, I feel like a dummy for taking Seahawks at +6. I feel like a big dummy, but they just flopped. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is their rookie running back, is that Charbonnet?
Yeah,
They spent a second round pick on him, or was it third?
it was up there. Yeah,
Oh, and
it's like where's this guy?
right. So you have essentially Walker, who we know is a really good back. We know he's a stud. And then you spend a high pick, high asset on Charbonnet, and you're not even utilizing him. And to the point you made, I don't know why teams, when they're only down 10 to 14 points, it's a 2 possession game, they go into this panic mode where they feel like they have to throw the ball. And it's like, listen, if you're not playing hurry up, right? If you're just running a pass play, huddling up, letting the play clock go down to 6, snapping it again and throwing another pass play, are you really like playing with urgency at that point? So do you really need to throw the ball every play? No. Why don't you just run it? Just run the ball. That's your bread and butter. Run the ball, run play action off of that. And the Seahawks should be able to do whatever they want on offense. But their line is bad so far this year. I thought that they were going to build off of a couple of good, couple good weeks on offense, and the Ravens fucking punched them right in the mouth. So we'll look for a bounce back week from the Seahawks next week, unless they have a bye. I don't know. But either way, Ravens looked really good. Seahawks did not.
Seahawks ended the day with 28 yards rushing against Baltimore's 298.
Yikes.
And then time of possession was 40 minutes to 20. So it was just a complete
That's tough.
debacle.
That's tough. I bet they're going to have fun watching the tape on that one.
Yeah. Getting on to another debacle, I honestly don't want to spend too much time talking about. It's just nothing expected or nothing unexpected happened. Cardinals Browns 27-0. Cardinals offense looks rough. We knew it was going to look rough with Clayton Tune in there for them going against that defense in Cleveland. It was a shit show waiting to happen. At one point in the game, it was 107-9 in passing yards. Mari Cooper gets a touchdown and Njoku gets a touchdown. Browns get a strip sack. I don't know if it ended up being 7 punts, but at one point it was 7 punts, 3 turnovers for that Cardinals offense, and the Browns just controlled the entire game. There was, I mean, like I said, nothing unexpected from this game.
Yeah, the line started, I think, the week around 8, 8.5. And then Friday, I was at the Syracuse and Boston College football game, and I'm on my phone during a break, and I'm looking at the line, and all of a sudden, we just recorded the night before. All of a sudden, the line's up to 10.5. I'm like, damn, it jumped 2 points overnight. And then you wait another day and a half, and the line's up at like 12.5 to 13. So at that point, and I told people, I said, watch this line. It might continue to creep up by the time Sunday rolls around and it's game time, and it did. And then I started to think, I'm like, well, what's the sucker bet here? I feel like Vegas is trying to sucker us into something, and there really wasn't. It was just that Tune's that bad. Nobody know. Nobody. That's the thing. Nobody knew anything about him. There was just too many variables and uncertainties going into that game to make a bet on it. So it was what it was. Browns D showed that they're good, which we already knew, and the Cardinals stink, which we know.
Yeah. It was a little in the dark about, hey, maybe Kyler Murray is playing. So I think that's why the line was what it was. And then as we get later on, and we're finding out, no, Kyler Murray is definitely not going to play. And that's when you see all the money on the Cleveland Browns. And
Yeah.
I mean, if shit, honestly, the line could have kept going, kept going, and kept going, and I wouldn't have been surprised because that was just an absolute beatdown.
Yeah.
Washington Commanders, New England Patriots. Commanders win 20-17. I thought the Commanders came to play. Something I talked about last episode. Sometimes when you trade guys, you know, and everybody starts to doubt you, like, okay, this team's folding. This team, they're just tanking on their season. And those are two really good players that they gave up. Yeah. But sometimes you see that galvanize a team, really see a team play inspired football. And that's what I saw from the Commanders early in that game. They jumped out to 10-0 lead. I thought Sam Howell was absolutely slinging it on Sunday. I thought this game was about to get ugly. And then Brian Robinson fumbles to set New England up. New England gets a Hunter Henry touchdown. And then after that, you see 64-yard touchdown run by Ramondre Stevenson. And boom, just like that, Patriots are up 14-10. You're like, holy fuck, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I thought the Commanders were about to rout them, and then that fumble just flipped everything upside down. Sam Howell threw a bonehead interception. This is, the ups and downs. He's a gunslinger. He's gonna sling it. He's gonna make the throws that he's gonna try to make the throws that he thinks he can make. But before halftime in the red zone, him throwing that pick was, I thought it was going to end up being really costly for them.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up pulling it off anyways, but I thought that was a really bad mistake by him. But he made up for it late in that game with an absolute dime to Jahan Dotson that he threw in the end zone. Just led him perfectly, deep ball, like, and that's what I'm talking about with Sam Howell. That's an it throw. That's when you're like, oh fuck, this guy's got something. When you see somebody make a throw like that in a spot like that was a point in the game where it tied it up 17-17 for him. And just like that, they're right back in it. I just thought, wow, it was like a jaw dropping throw, and there was a couple of them from Sunday. I thought that was one of them, and that's what he's capable of. 4th and 2, when the Commanders are about to punt late in that game, New England jumps offsides on a 4th and 2, and that's just something you don't see from Bill Belichick's teams.
Mm-hmm.
But we saw it. It costed them. Um, Patriots move down the field late and then throw a pick. I don't know. I thought they could have kicked a field goal. At one point, but they started forcing it down the field. and it is what it is. I mean, Mac Jones had a really good game-winning drive a few weeks ago against Buffalo. I thought, hey, maybe again, maybe, and then he ends up ultimately throwing the pick in the end, and Commanders win.
Yeah, for those of us who took the Patriots at -2.5, we were really hoping for a game tying field goal and some overtime or a little bit of Mac magic, and we got neither. What I did take away from the game is that New England, without Kendrick Bourne, their receivers fucking suck. They cannot catch the ball. I saw a couple really good throws from Mac Jones, and they just cannot catch the ball. I don't know what is wrong with them. And some of these throws, and these are like significant plays too. It's not just like a little 5 yard in or a curl route that's going to be, a 5 to 8 yard gain. Like these are throws down the field, one on ones, deep balls that Mac Jones actually drops in the well and makes a really good throw. And these guys just drop it consistently. So that's what the Patriots need to do in the offseason, dude. They need to address that wide receiver core. I think they need to flip the whole core upside down and just keep one guy, and that's Kendrick Bourne. But other than that, yeah, I thought that it was a big win for the Commanders to try to stay relevant. They're 4-5 now, and I didn't think that they would perform that well defensively after getting rid of their two starting ends. And I thought New England was going to run the ball really well. So when Stevenson had that touchdown, I was pumped. I was like, here we go. That's what they're going to do the rest of the game. Just run it down their throat. They didn't. Commanders win. We lose another one. And, on to the next one.
Yep. We're going to get to Eagles Cowboys shortly. We're going to get to Bills Bengals shortly. But there's a couple games we want to go through quick on that 4 o'clock slate. Giants Raiders. Whew.
Dude.
Raiders win 30-6. Daniel Jones tears his ACL. I thought the Raiders had some juice to them. It was another thing. We just talked about the Commanders, how sometimes you trade some guys and it really galvanizes the locker room. Same thing with firing a coach. And of course it's going to be the case when you fired Josh McDaniels, who players have not responded well to in his stints as head coach. So you get somebody like Antonio Pierce in there, fiery guy, ex-player, won a Super Bowl, just an absolute dog, great player for the Giants back in the day.
Yeah.
You put him in that role, that team was juiced. There was a lot of energy in that game. This was my regret of the week betting wise, was ended up taking the Giants plus 1.5, and it was over quick. It wouldn't have mattered if Daniel Jones was in there or not. He was 4 for 9 for 25 yards in that game. Missed Jalen Hyatt on 2 deep balls. Tripped on his own guy for a sack before tearing his ACL. I never want to wish an injury on anybody, obviously, but it wouldn't have made a difference either way in that game. Tommy DeVito's bad, threw 2 bad picks early in that game,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought he responded well. I thought he honestly, I thought that shit, I thought they were going to get like a 50 burger put on them because of how my instant thought on Tommy DeVito between this week and last week. I thought he hung around in there, but the winning quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, I thought looked really good, taking shots, very accurate in that game. First half numbers, he was 9 for 11 for buck 35. He finished 16 for 25 with 209, 0 picks, 0 sacks. And that's what you'd like to see out of your rookie quarterback. Yeah, he only had 16 completions for 209, but he's not hurting his team. And I thought there were some throws that he made in that game that you can get a little excited about. If you're a Raiders fan and you're looking towards the future, maybe he is that guy. Who knows? But I think that's a great start for Antonio Pierce. And man, it sucks the Raiders are in the AFC because they're not going to have any chance down the line. But if that team was in the NFC, they'd be fighting for a playoff spot probably till the end. Because I think like Max Crosby, what he can do to an offense
Mhm.
is he's on that. He doesn't get talked about enough. Like on that level, we talk about like Miles Garrett's, we talk about like T.J. Watts, Von Miller. Max Crosby doesn't get talked about enough because he has that kind of impact on a game. And then Devonte Adams didn't even. Another thing I wrote down is Adams had like one catch. He had one catch for 6 yards at halftime, and the Raiders were up 24-0. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that tells you more about the Raiders or more about the Giants, but Giants are they are who we thought they originally were. They had a couple nice weeks there, but ultimately, Raiders rolled in this one. The Raiders.
Raiders. What was the score when Daniel Jones got hurt? Do we remember?
Um, I'm not sure. I think it was 14-0.
Because I want to mark that one in non-applicable. If we have an injury earlier enough in the game to a starting quarterback, the bet voids. If you bet on the losing team, that bet is voided. To You're probably right. I mean, even if Daniel Jones, um, you know, unfortunately got hurt, but even if he doesn't get hurt in that game, maybe it doesn't make a difference, and the Raiders still roll, kind of steamroll them. But I like to think that the Giants would have got it going on offense eventually. But yeah, I mean, it's just tough. It sucks to see him go down. He just got back, and he goes down on a simple drop back too. It was just a normal routine drop back in the pocket, and I don't know if this is going to become a bigger topic across the NFL because I believe it was on turf. So I don't know if the turf is going to continue to be a topic or a talking point. But yeah, that just sucks. So I feel bad. Um, I wish him the best in recovery. But now, what do the Giants do moving forward? Where do you go from here? Are you sticking with DeVito, or are you going to pull something out of the
Matt
Rams?
Barkley.
Do they have him? Did they sign him?
They have Matt Barkley, and I think he might actually be starting. So
Did they go get him this week, or did they? They always had him.
he might have been on their practice squad because I know obviously there's ties with him and Dable from Buffalo.
Yeah,
I don't know if he was on their practice squad. They signed him off it. Honestly, doesn't really matter to me. I think there's,
yeah,
eh,
yeah. No, I mean, but hey, I'm taking him over DeVito. Um,
true.
so yeah, no, but that was obviously interesting. That was a bet I really liked going in. I thought the Giants were going to be able to mix it, and over the course of the game, I didn't think the Raiders would be able to keep up. I thought they'd be fired up for Pierce, but eventually would you know hand the game over to the Giants. But yeah, it happened the way it happened. So we'll learn our lesson and we'll do better next week.
Yeah. Another game where it was just Indianapolis Colts win 27-13 over the Carolina Panthers. Um, I don't have a ton on this game, Tyler. The
Mm-mm.
Panthers offense looked awful early in that game, like
Mm-hmm.
-9 yards passing in the second quarter they had.
Wow.
Colts got bailed out by a personal foul call on Carolina's D-back on that hit on Michael Pittman. I already talked about that. And what I thought
Yeah,
about that, Jonathan Taylor scored a touchdown that made it 10-0. And then Kenny Moore. Kenny Moore gets two pick sixes on Bryce Young. I mean, how many times do you see that in a game?
that's crazy.
Doesn't happen. But Kenny Moore did it. Shout out to him. Other than that, I mean, we knew the Panthers were going to be bad, so I'm not one of those guys who's like, "Oh my god, Carolina regrets." Like I love CJ Stroud, but it's like I'm not sitting here saying that Bryce Young's a bust. Carolina made the wrong move. Like if you expected Carolina to be, I mean, I'll give you their offense. I thought was going to look better than what it has, but they were going to be a bad team. Like
Mm-hmm.
we knew that. We knew that was coming into this year. I don't think Frank Reich's a good head coach. I don't know if Bryce Young's in the best hands in Carolina, but I do think Bryce Young is going to have a quality NFL career. I really do. I just think the him being the competitor that he is a big part of that. So I'm not one of these people that's just going to completely shit on Carolina. Like they are what we expected they were. Bryce Young's going to make mistakes, and they have to do a better job of helping him out. And it's that. But Colts, good for them.
Yeah, this was our first win of the day. Colts minus 2.5. So that was the first win of the day for me. I was surprised that that line was only at 2.5. I wasn't sure what the reasoning was, but um, yeah, the Panthers. Do we know what's going on with Miles Sanders? Is he been just benched because he sucks this year, or is he hurt? I don't know.
Chuba.
But that was the thing going in. We're like, okay, they got Miles Sanders, good back. They go and get Thielen. They got some okay pieces on the offense. Maybe they'll be able to put up 17 to 20 a game, and you'd be lucky if they got 17. Um, yeah, so not much to take away from this one other than the Colts are better than the Panthers. So,
Yeah. And it's that simple.
yeah.
Let's dive into a game now.
Oof.
Cowboys Eagles 28-23. Philly pulls it off. I have an entire page of notes for this game.
Oh,
There's just so much about this game.
yeah.
Summing it up, though, I don't think there's any such thing as like a moral victory in the NFL. Like I don't really believe in that,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think it has to feel good for the Cowboys and the Cowboys fans seeing that. Like I thought majority of that game, I thought they outplayed Philly. I thought you take a few things that happened late away and they win that game. I thought this is a spot where Dak doesn't always, show up and perform in that spotlight, but I thought he was money on Sunday. Like the only negative thing that you could say about the guy was the delay of game that they took, and then him not getting in on the run and the 2-point conversion, which we all thought he did at first. So I thought it was a great game for Dak. But Jalen Hurts is a fucking dog, dude. He took that hit to his knee in that game, and I was like worried for the Eagles because I was like, that does not look good.
Yeah.
Like how he was reacting to that, it didn't look good for them. And then what do you know? You see him go back out on the field, and I'm pretty sure they end up scoring a touchdown on that drive. Um, Either way, like these were two great teams going at it. I have so many notes. I'm going to try and pick my way through these. I thought McCarthy, who's getting killed as he always does, and deservingly so sometimes, but I don't see anything wrong with him going for it when he did, because to me, the Eagles are going to go for it every single time. That's Nick Sirianni. That's the Eagles' mentality.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go for it on fourth down. I don't even know why they have a kicker on their roster, to be honest. But when you're playing a team like that, and oh by the way, it feels like they're always converting them too. They're always converting those fourth downs. It's so tough to get that team off the field when you're competing against that and you're a head coach. I I don't blame Mike McCarthy at all for like looking back at it. It's like yeah, it sucks because two field goals out of those three possessions that you didn't score two field goals and you would have won the game. Yeah, you would have won the game. But who's to say that you're going to make the Eagles go 3 and out? Like what the Cowboys defense did, in the end of that game to keep giving their offense a chance to go back down in the red zone. They forced three and outs late in that game. That you don't do that to the Eagles, but the Cowboys defense did that. But who's to say that's going to happen if you're in Mike McCarthy's shoes? So I don't blame him at all for doing what he did. And like I said, Dak steps out barely, and then they get stopped at like the half-yard line.
Yeah.
Um, with the throw of the tight end, it was that close to being a touchdown. So other things from this game, Fletcher Cox is still very good. Jalen Carter's been banged up, but I thought Fletcher Cox he still looks like a problem. He's not going to be, he's probably not going to be out there for as many snaps a game as he once was, obviously. But the depth that they have on that D line, the ability for them to constantly rotate guys in and out, he he has like the freedom to like let it loose when he's on the field. And I thought Fletcher Cox looked really good in that game. Greg Olson, I thought, made a great point on broadcast. He said uh, in key third and fourth down situations, Dak is constantly connecting with guys besides CeeDee Lamb, and I thought that was another thing that was just very impressive from Dak because it's like we know what you can do with CeeDee Lamb, we know what he's capable of, we know how good of a tandem you guys are, what you can do, but if the defense is focusing on CeeDee Lamb, are you able to beat them spreading the ball around the field to your other guys? And I thought Dak did a great job of that on Sunday. I thought he trusted his guys like Tolbert on critical third, fourth downs, his tight ends. I think that is big for the growth of the Cowboys offense and Dak Prescott. Another thing, A.J. Brown, another touchdown. Feels like he's scoring a touchdown every week. There's not many receivers in the NFL that are better than that guy right now. And then the Cowboys O line. I thought the Cowboys O line did a good job overall most of the game. They did much better than I expected them to do. But, you know, that last drive when, it mattered most, that Eagles pass rush took over. Ultimately, that sack by Josh Sweat, I thought that was the game right there that set Dallas back. And honestly, I thought it won the game for the Eagles, and then was that sack by Sweat. Um, but yeah, Tyler, Cowboys fan, rough loss, but are you feeling any kind of positive way after that game?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's yeah, it's a tough loss. Like you said, there's really no such thing as a moral victory. But the one I pointed out going into the game, Dallas hadn't really made. It was like a statement game, right? We needed to see them make it a game to feel comfortable calling them one of the better teams in the NFC. Because for leading into that game, other than the Chargers game, which we all know, were there, the Chargers are a few missed Herbert throws that he would normally make away from either tying that up or taking the lead. Aside from that Chargers game, either Dallas got blown out or they blew the team out. And the teams that they blown out were not great teams. So we needed to see them play the Eagles tough. They did that. I do think that they outplayed the Eagles overall. Dak has to get better in the red zone. He has to get better down inside the 10-yard line. And it's not just him. It could be play calling as well. Dallas needs to get the run game going. They can't keep just running Pollard inside the tackles. Like they're not it's sometimes frustrating watching how they're using Pollard so far this year because they're using Pollard like they used Zeke last year. And then they're not really using Rico Dowdle in much of a support role. So I think they need to start giving Rico Dowdle some more touches, supplementing and letting Pollard be a little more fresh, and then use Pollard the way that you used him last year. They're not throwing the ball to Pollard out of the backfield. That was a big thing that they did last year. Maybe that was because it was a Kellen Moore thing. Maybe it was Kellen Moore liked getting the ball out to the back in some space, but they haven't been doing that this year. I'd like to see how many receptions Pollard has on the season because I guarantee it's not enough. You need to get him the ball out in space and let him make a play. He's not an elite back running between the tackles. He's solid. He runs hard, but you need to get him in space more. I think that's the biggest thing that the other offense needs to work on moving forward. They have enough weapons. I loved how they used Ferguson, but yeah, down inside the 10-yard line, they're a couple plays away from winning the game. Terrence Steele was really their right tackle was really the reason why that offensive line let the pressure. Dak got sacked. I think every sack that game was from Terrence Steele. I think he allowed 2 or 3 sacks, and 2 of them being on that final possession. So Terrence Steele just needs to get better. Hassan Reddick just blew by him twice in sweat. They just blew right by him. They didn't. It wasn't much of a move. It was just whoop, right by him. Like he couldn't fucking move. And they just paid him all this money and extended him to a 5-year deal. So he needs to get better. I think the rest of the offensive line played well. I love Tyler Smith. He had that false start call, which was close. It was close. The one thing I didn't want the game to come down to was I didn't want it to come down to penalties, and it almost did. But yeah, I guess I feel better moving forward that Dallas can hang and make it a game with some of the top teams in the league. But I hate losing to the fucking Eagles. I fucking hate it, especially with Hurts playing banged up. It's like, God damn it. But we'll get him next time. We'll get him next
Yeah.
time.
All right. Sunday night football. Buffalo Bills 18, Cincinnati Bengals 25. Joe Burrow. I mean, he's got the receipts from everybody those first couple weeks and what they were saying about the Bengals being dead. Because this team right now, I talked about them already in probably being like the second most scary team, talking about the potential that they can reach. Cincinnati Bengals are up there. I thought Joe Burrow was absolutely dialed in on Sunday night. Early in the game, I thought he was very comfortable. He was seeing the field well. Opens up with a touchdown to Irv Smith. Great throw to the back corner of the end zone, make it 7-0. And then Bills get the ball back. They march right down the field. And I was like, all right, we got a shootout here. And they marched right down the field, 7 straight passes to start the game for the Bills. I There was a great screen design to Diggs for 34 yards on that first drive. Really good play. And it's like, I don't see enough of that. I don't see enough of creativity in Buffalo. Like, look what that play just did for you. I don't see enough of that. There's too much of just like slinging it around, running around, waiting for something to happen. I feel like there's too much of that. No creativity. But, anyways, Burrow, great throw on 3rd and 10 with the ball back that next drive to Tyler Boyd, who I thought played really good. Put him in the red zone. Start that game, Joe Burrow was 11 for 14, 114 yards and a touchdown, and it just continued all night. Joe Mixon got a tutty. Like I said, he's running a lot better than I thought that he had left in the tank. He is the second longest tenured running back with their team right now in the league. Derrick Henry's 1 and
Hmm.
Mixon's 2. So he's been around a minute in Cincinnati, and I think he still looks pretty good running the ball for them. Josh Allen throws his 9th pick of the year to Cam Taylor-Britt, put the Bengals in the red zone. Cam Taylor-Britt, I mentioned him before. I feel like he's one of the most underrated cornerbacks in the league. I think he's an absolute dog. I really do. I think Cam Taylor-Britt is really good corner. And then Dax Hill at safety. Those two guys, I thought, played another great game for them. Um, Bills did not get James Cook going. I feel like I'm just beating this drum every time we talk about the Bills. I'm honestly tired of talking about it, but it was the same predictable Bills offense in that game. And ultimately, the Bengals knew what they wanted to do. The Bengals got a good defense. You're not going to beat the Bengals defense um, doing what you have been doing. It's just not going to happen. So, Bengals, like I said, they got their tight ends involved finally. I think getting them involved. T. Higgins, the game that he had 8 catches for 110 yards. Like, if we see that with what Chase can do, that's when you're really talking about this. There's too many of these games where we see T. Higgins just go quiet. And he's dealt with some injuries too over the last couple of years. There's too many of those games. Like if we can get him on that level with Jamar Chase paired up on the other side, that the way Burrow is dialed in right now, there's no limit to what the Bengals can accomplish. And on top of that, they got a really good defense, and I think they got one of the best D coordinators in the league with Lou Anarumo. Ultimately, they end up winning 24-18. Mixon sealed the game late with a 3rd and 4. But that's all I got for that game.
This was our first juicy bet that hit. All right. It was the only one that hit. So we had a bad beat on the Falcons one, a non applicable to the Giants, and then we hit with the Bengals. So yeah, it was a good game though. I think that we knew going in that Josh Allen again was going to have to be the superhero. He's going to have to play Superman in order for them to win that game. He did not, and they did not win. I thought that they used Kincaid really well. I like the way that they're getting Dalton Kincaid you know involved in the offense and the way that they're utilizing him. But they need to do this when Dawson Knox is healthy too. Like he can't just disappear when Dawson Knox comes back. You spend the first round pick on the kid. He clearly is showing that he can do it. If he has to be the guy, if he has to be the guy, then make him the guy. You can, in my opinion, I mean, it's just they extended Dawson Knox. Yes, go ahead.
I completely forgot to mention that Kincaid fumble. That was a huge play in the game.
Yeah,
I just thought it was great defensive play by Cincinnati. Great tackle, great punch out. And that was a critical play late in that game. But sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and he got that was the one he got like flipped upside down, right?
Jermaine Pratt.
My boy, that's my cuzzy. That's my cuzzy. Um, yeah, I mean, I just as I was saying, like the way that they were utilizing Kincaid, I think they need to do that even when Dawson Knox comes back. I know they extended Dawson Knox and gave him a 3-year extension and paid him like a top 10 tight end in the league, but I think you have that tight end who can be just as productive as him, and technically, like he has been since Dawson Knox has been out and Kincaid has been in the starting role. He's been more productive than Dawson Knox when he was in that role. So they just if it doesn't hurt to have two really good tight ends. So just that might be the Bills' biggest thing is finding a way to utilize them because their offense has been very stagnant. I feel like over the last few weeks they haven't really been able to get a whole lot going like they were the first few weeks, especially against the Dolphins earlier in the year. And everyone thought the Bills were Super Bowl favorites, and now they're what 5-4. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not worried about it. I'm not overreacting to this game. As you know, they played a good Bengals
I
team
don't know.
against good Burrow.
I'm
Go ahead.
I don't know. I'm looking at it now. What I'm about to like. Josh Allen once again was their leading rusher with 44 yards. James Cook 6 carries for 20, and then Latavius had 2 carries for 4. Maybe they have a plan for Leonard Fournette where they're automatically just going to completely change their run scheme and try to run the ball. Maybe they're planning something that we don't know about. Who knows? But the way this is trending right now, I don't I'm not optimistic anymore about the Bills. And I said it after they lost to the Jags that I wasn't really worried about them, but it's getting to the point where I'm not too optimistic anymore about them. Um, Gabe Davis had 9 catches last week. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah,
You know how many catches he had Sunday night? Zero.
Goose egg.
Zero catches. Like that's supposed to be your number two wide receiver. Like you see what the Bengals number two wide receiver did, T. Higgins, and Gabe Davis has zero catches. Now Kincaid, I think, is going to be a baller. I think Kincaid is really good,
Mhm.
and he's going to be a reliable playmaker for their offense. He's going to bail them out a ton in the middle of the field, especially.
Mhm.
But there's not enough. There's not enough creativity. There's not enough like spreading the ball. It was just all Diggs and Kincaid and just no threat of a run game. Just if it is a run, it's Josh taking off. So same shit from the Bills. But you got anything else on that one?
Yeah, I mean, Matt asked me another question that was kind of a what if, because in the draft, I'm pretty sure um, the Vikings took Jordan Addison. Was it one or two spots ahead of the Bills? Well, I know the Bill. It's more than that because I think the Bills ended up trading up to jump in front of Dallas to take Kincaid because they thought Dallas was going to take Kincaid. Um, but either way, he asked me. He was like, "If you had the choice, if you were the Bills, you had the choice of Jordan Addison or Kincaid. Who would you take?" And I said, honestly, probably Jordan Addison. I really like Kincaid, but that's more so speaking to the level of play of everybody in that receiving core other than Diggs. Gabe Davis is hit or miss, and most of the time when he does get catches, they're just deep routes. Like he's not doing a whole lot of intermediate short work in the middle of the field. Most of the time when Josh Allen hits Gabe Davis, it's on a go route or a post. It's something down the field. It's never intermediate middle of the field work. Everybody else, they got what Hart is it Hardy? They got Shakir.
Deontay Hardy, yeah,
Yeah, the
zero catches.
that Shakir kid. Uh, like they don't have any playmakers other than Diggs. They just don't. So I feel like I would, if you add Jordan Addison to that offense, the Bills would still be okay because they have Dawson Knox. But that's the thing. Moving forward, you have Kincaid, you have Knox. Kincaid is your second best receiver on the team. So they need to start utilizing him like he is the second best receiver on the team, even when Dawson Knox is back. I don't think that, like I said, I'm not gonna overreact to this game. I like the Bengals going into it. That's why I took them at -2 and made them a juicy bet. I think the Bills have to figure some things out moving forward. A big thing for them was making moves on the defensive side of the ball to shore up that defense. I know they made that trade for Douglas, which was big. They went out and signed Linval Joseph to try to shore up the D tackle position and add depth. Maybe, like you said, Leonard Fournette plays a role in the offense that they is crucial. I mean, I don't see that happening, but you never know. You never know in the NFL. So I think the Bills will be okay, but they're not the team that everybody thought they were 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, a few more things. Like I do think Kincaid should be that second featured target in your offense.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he's shown that he's a weapon out there. Going back to the draft, Seahawks took JSN at 20. Chargers took Quentin Johnson at 21. Next pick, Ravens take Zay Flowers. Next pick after that, Vikings take Jordan Addison. And then two picks after that was Dalton Kincaid.
Damn.
Yeah. So all those receivers, and then Kincaid went in the 20s of that first round. I mean, outside of Quentin Johnson, who, I mean, there's still, who knows with him what he can be.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I'm not going to kill the kid for, his first 8 games, but
Right.
that that was a run right there in the
That
draft, I feel
was.
like.
Yeah, I know. And
But yeah, it is what it is. Talk about who knows with Fournette, but to me, he's not that explosive player. Like James Cook is the explosive player.
yeah.
James Cook's the one who can get out on the edge and you can throw the ball to, and he can do something with it. Like even if it takes dumping it off to him and making something happen, he's that guy. I don't think Lenny's that guy. right now.
No, and you know what I saw from them last year when Cook was a rookie? They were lining him up outside and he was running slant routes. Where's that been this year? You know what I mean? He's more polished and he's sure-handed. Like, I just don't know where the drop off is from last year to this year as far as utilization for him. But one off topic thing I wanted to say that I forgot to bring up earlier is the more and more that I watch Zay Flowers, the more and more I think he's like the closest thing to Tyreek Hill that we're probably going to get, other than Tyreek himself. Like, he's just, it's the size, the quickness, the speed, the way he can just stop on a dime. I love. I mean, he had that one rough week against the Steelers, but other than that, I just love what Zay Flowers brings to the table.
Yeah, he's fun to watch. He's fun to watch.
Yeah.
All right, let's cap it off. Monday Night Football, another game. Not much to talk about. I don't even have notes on this game. Chargers beat the Jets 27-6. This was just a rough watch last night. I regrettably stayed up until the end of it. Hoping that the Jets could make something happen, but it never did. I mean, Zach Wilson didn't have time. Zach Wilson wasn't good. I think they ended up with 6 sacks against him. I wasn't sure, but it felt like the Chargers D was just eating all night. I thought Joey Bosa looked really good. I mentioned Derwin James earlier. I thought that was one of those games where you felt Derwin James' impact in that game, and that's fun. I love seeing Derwin James when he's at his highest level. He's one of those fun players to watch, and the Chargers are one of those fun teams to watch when they get it going.
Yeah.
But right now, like last night, it was just the defense. The offense didn't do anything special. I mean, Justin Herbert ended up having under 200 yards passing. I know that he ended up with 136 yards passing, Tyler. So, I mean, nothing impressive out of him. He got sacked 5 times. The Jets got Zach Wilson took 8 sacks, not 6. But I mean, Eckler only had 47 yards on the ground. Keenan Allen had 8 catches for 77. Shout out to him for getting 10,000 yards in the league.
Wow.
That was awesome to see. But I mean, outside of that highlight from Keenan Allen, 8 catches for 77 and getting that 10,000, there was just nothing from the Chargers offense. And credit to the Jets defense. They continue to make quarterbacks lives a living hell out there. Like,
Yeah.
that's a really good defense, but bad team who same story as last year with the Jets. They're just missing the production from the offense. Third downs, they're absolutely terrible. Um, Fumbles last night killed them. I mean, Zach didn't throw any picks, but they ended up fumbling 4 times and then losing 3 of them. I didn't bring up the punt return also that started the Chargers off last night, and it just felt like the Jets need things like that to go their way to have a chance. Like this version of the Jets, they need those special teams plays. They need those breaks. Those fumbles, those strip sacks. They need those. They can't afford to give those up because their offense is not good enough.
Mhm.
They're just not. Hopefully, Rodgers. I mean, I know it's going to be a miracle. It's going to be a long shot. It'll be a Hollywood story if he makes it back. But I would love to see it. I would love to see it because that Jets defense is fighting their asses off and not getting rewarded for it. I'm not going to overreact too much to the Chargers. I still think they got a bad head coach and they're going to continue to underperform. I really don't see them as a Super Bowl threat coming out of the AFC. I don't, because they just continue to underperform, and Justin Herbert's got all the tools, all the skills in the world, but I need to see him do it. Like, enough talk. I need to see him do it. I know you're missing Mike Williams, but they drafted you a receiver in the first round. Get that guy going. You still got Keenan Allen. You still got Austin Eckler, and then you got all those guys on the defense, highest paid defense in the league. There's just no. I'm not giving Justin Herbert those excuses anymore. I know Brandon Staley's a bad head coach, so I do hope they fire him. So now we could see the best version of Justin Herbert, bring in an offensive coach maybe. But I need to see better out of him. I need to see better out of Kellen Moore, who they brought in and everybody made a big deal about for the Chargers. But yeah, that's all I got from that one. One more thing I want to touch on since we went through the Jets, the Bills. We just got done talking about the Bills. Now we're talking about the Jets, that AFC East. All those teams lost. So while I say I'm not highly optimistic about the Bills, I still think like it's essentially their division to lose here because you already beat Miami once and you could play them again. And then the Jets losing last night too. Like it's all in front of you if you're the Bills. And it's the same thing for Miami. Like people are talking down on Miami, but it's like it's all in front of Miami. So I like those two teams' chances a hell of a lot better than I do with Zach Wilson and Nate Hackett's offense.
Yeah, so I like the 3.5 that the Jets were getting into that game. I unfortunately was working late into the start of the game. By the time I was able to meet the boys out for dinner, because it was Thomas's last day in town before he left. So I went to go meet them out for dinner. And by the time I got there from the office, it was well into the second quarter. So I had no idea. I wasn't even going to watch the game by the time we ate, left, and I got home. It was then midway through the fourth quarter. So I didn't get to see any of the game. So basically, what you just explained was the most that I have heard about it. I haven't done any. I didn't even look what the final score was. I just know that the Jets were losing and they weren't going to cover 3.5 or get. They weren't even going to get to the 3.5 that they were getting. Excuse me. So, but it sounds like Zach Wilson was Zach Wilson. He was the Wilson that we know, and we've become accustomed to seeing. Yeah. So I don't have much on this one. I don't really have anything. I just hope that I'm a Kellen Moore fan, obviously, since he was with the Dallas organization for so long. So I hope that they move on from Staley and give Kellen Moore an opportunity. But to be quite frankly honest, I don't know if Kellen Moore is ready for that. But fuck it, throw him in. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
You know?
I didn't realize you didn't see it, or else I would have pointed out Zach Wilson. He might have take those fumbles away. Like you could argue that he outplayed Justin Herbert last night. That's the weird thing about it.
Oh,
Like
really?
you would think that no, like Justin Herbert ended up going 16 for 30 for 136
Oof.
with a QB rating of 41.
Damn.
But Zach Wilson threw it 49 times.
He
And he ended up with 263.
he threw
Yeah.
it 49
49 times.
times.
Yeah. So,
No
and I get that they're
way.
trailing, but you can't expect Zach Wilson to, like, as an offensive play caller, you're having that dude go out there and throw the ball 49 times. You're just setting him up to fail, especially with a bad front and a really capable Chargers D line who can get after you with Bosa and Khalil Mack. Joseph Day played good for them too. But it's like that's Wilson had 263 yards passing, but it was like they were always trying to make something happen. Every time they got something going in the run game, it was there was just nothing there. And if something did pop off, it was like every time something popped off, there was a penalty that brought it back.
Mm,
I had Brees Hall going last night against Dave. I was down 12 points going into that game. I had Brees Hall, and I think he ended up with like 5 or 6 points for me. So
wow.
it's like there's nothing going there. And Dalvin Cook only got the ball twice, and he ran for 7 yards. So not too much to take away from that game.
What's the point of them signing Dalvin Cook and ultimately holding on to him at the deadline when they could have probably gotten a couple draft picks for him if they're not even going to use the guy?
That's the thing. Like you're just wasting the guy away there.
Hmm. Well, hopefully they figure that
I
out.
don't want to. I didn't want to. I probably shouldn't have used the words that Zach Wilson outplayed Justin Herbert because his QBR for the day ended up at 17.9. But it's just one of those shit show games, one of those NFL shit shows that tough watch, especially for prime
Wow.
time.
Wow.
Prime time let us down.
17.9.
Yeah, bad.
That's tough.
But that's it. That's it for our week 9 NFL recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Like and follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram, new underscore score underscore podcast. We appreciate y'all for listening. We intend to keep engaging with you guys the best that we can, getting some feedback from you, getting some questions. Plan on being back later this week for some segments and for our week 10 preview. Tyler.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say before we get out of here that, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, rough week. You take those on the chin, you move on, you get back on the fucking horse, and you keep betting. You keep betting. We're going to be back next week. I've been busy as fuck lately. No excuse. This week, I'm coming with the statistics. I'm coming back with facts, and we're going to get right back on the train. We're going to get rolling next week. Tune in later this week. I'm gonna have a lot more for you guys, and our juicy bets are going to be juicy.
Juicy. Thanks, guys, for listening. We will see you later this week. Goodbye.
Peace.